Last episode we started at Nullumbi in the Northern Territory, and you joined us as we crossed the Gulf of Carpentaria to Weipa in Queensland.
Well, it's morning here in Weipa, which is why I look like this, and I've just discovered one more drawback to coming back to land. That is, the birds get habituated to sitting on boats overnight. Now what does that mean? Let's go have a look. So that was fairly disgusting, but there is a silver lining to that cloud, and I'll tell you what it is. We'd set that up, the rain catcher that got pooed on, we'd set that up to catch rain overnight. The rain didn't come, which was really lucky, because that bird would have still pooed all over the rain catcher and the rest of the boat, but the rain would have washed into the jerry can. We wouldn't have known. Sometime later we'd be like, this is delicious rainwater, and we would have got an unexpected bonus. So all good timing. It's better to be lucky than smart sometimes. Besides catching bigger fish than me, your other area of expertise is the provisioning. Now, we've got 8 weeks of adventuring. I'm looking here. Doesn't look like a hell of a lot. What can you tell us about it?
So we have re-provisioned today, well yesterday actually, in Weipa, and we basically have just topped up on what we needed. We still have things left over from when we left Perth in March, so those things are the things that keep for a long time. I actually ordered a lot of those things in bulk, and it's really saved us a lot of money. We bulk ordered all our legumes and the things that we could sprout, and also wheat. So we've still got all those things, like mung beans, for example. Got like 5 kilos still of mung beans, which we sprout when we run out of fresh vegetables. But the other stuff that we can't carry like for a year is things like tinned food. So we're starting to run out. We don't really buy much tinned food, but what we have bought is replaced all the tinned tomatoes that we've eaten over the last 6 to 9 months. And we've gotten some more. Tend to get some corn, because that's a really nice thing to add to a meal. It's
versatile, isn't it?
Yeah, and basically we just get anything that's, we minimise the amount of tins we have on board because they are heavy, and we can get away a lot of the time with just cooking things from dried, so like all our legumes and stuff. We don't buy tinned beans or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, what we buy in tins is generally, we're looking at a price range of about $1 a can, a tin. We don't tend to buy anything much more than that. And they're all raw ingredients. We don't buy anything pre-cooked or processed foods per se. I mean, as you look around, you don't see much processed food. There's a few things that we like to have as additions, like Kewpie mayonnaise. That's totally processed, but it's totally delicious. But it also keeps out of the fridge, so it's one of those things where you're like, a little bit of preservatives to keep something out of the fridge is alright. Our other basics that we always replace when we get into town, because they take up a lot of space, and they're always easy to find at a new town, particularly in Australia, is we always we eat about 1 packet of oats a week. So I always calculate how many weeks we're going to be away for, and maybe add a couple packets on top of that. The same thing with milk powder. We'll eat probably 1 packet of milk powder over a period of 9 days. This amount of milk powder will probably make 3 batches of yogurt, and then we'll supply the milk for our tea for those 9 days that we're eating 3 batches of yogurt. So that's how I calculate that. So I figure that out and match the milk to the amount of days. Every now and again we'll also make cheese with milk powder, so I always add a few more packets of milk powder onto my calculations. What else? We don't really get any junk food. We did buy some $2.50 cookies, which will probably go in like 2 days. That's why we don't buy junk food.
What are you trying to say?
And honey is a staple. When we left Perth, we bought 12 kilos of honey from an apiarist at $11 a kilo, I think, and it was, you know, fresh honey straight from local bees, which was great. But now we're out here and we don't have access to that, so we've gone and bought the biggest packet of honey that we can because we love honey. We have it in most of mornings in our yogurt with our oats. So we've gone and bought 3 kilos of honey. 3 kilos of honey lasts us about 2 months, so we're like honey fiends. But yeah, I mean, when you don't have chocolate or other treats, honey's something else. And also, that's the other thing that we also eat is dates. We'll soak them in water and make them into raw balls as a treat.
That's our version of chocolate, I guess.
Our version of chocolate, yeah. Because they don't melt, they're easy, they're whole food, they're real food. It's not like, yeah.
So talking of real whole food, we've got beer over here.
Yeah, well, I was making whole grain beer in the Kimberley, but it's a little hard. It's very time consuming, and you've got to, you know, have a fire going, and you've got to cook it for 3 hours. Well, it ends up being 3 hours of cooking with boiling the wort and boiling the sparging water and all that sort of stuff. So we're going to try these Cooper's kits out. I'm going to do a simple version, like just following the instructions to a T at our friend's house over the next few days. And then we're just going to try that and see what it tastes like. And then I've got a lot of different hops and yeasts that we can play around with for these other tubs that I've bought. And we've also bought some ginger beer premix as well. So
give it a whirl.
I've had success with ginger beer premix. It's normally pretty tasty and it's really simple to do. So that's good. I mean, we're going to be saving ourselves a lot of money because these tins are like $15, and a carton of beer up here in northern Queensland is about $70. So
a carton of beer of 24.
Yeah, yeah.
Not a big carton either. It's a wee
24
carton.
bottles. So I actually will go through a lot of this stuff and put it in containers, so we've got all the plastic off the boat already.
Yeah, and when people are provisioning, if you're new to provisioning boats, I think it's important to say, if you bring your provisions on board in cardboard boxes, especially that corrugated cardboard, we never do that, do we, Pascal? Because it's a cockroach haven. You can have them in the cockpit, or you can briefly transfer them, but if you leave those cardboard boxes for like 2-3 days in your boat, you are gonna get it.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. Okay, so fresh food. We obviously get fresh food that we can keep out of the fridge because we don't have space in our fridge. Our fridge has got our yogurt and our fish pretty much, and what else? Sprouts, and that's about it.
Well, because we're so heavily reliant on harvesting the sea, that's our fridge
is for that.
It holds that,
and some leftovers or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got pumpkins were on special, so we got these for $2 each. And we got ourselves some good-looking, fresh cabbages. So this is a lot of food, and this keeps out of the fridge. Got to keep your eye on it in the tropics, especially now in the summer, to make sure it's not going bad. But you can generally peel away a few leaves if it's going bad, and it's normally pretty good underneath. If it is going bad, I just chop it up real small and turn it into sauerkraut or kimchi, which we can talk about another time.
Yeah.
And when the cabbage does run out, we manage to get a few jars of this pre-made sauerkraut, which is pretty good for when you, after 6 or 7 weeks and you have run out of the fresh vegetables, you can pull that out of the cupboard. And then the other things that we eat are like potatoes and sweet potatoes. We'll wrap these in newspaper and put them up on the net, the food net, and they keep pretty well, and you just got to keep your eye on them after 3 or 4 weeks, just check that they're doing okay. I just go around and have a feel, and anything that's starting to get soft, I'll use that for my cooking and leave the harder ones in the basket.
It's always going to be a challenge in the tropics, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have any issues when we left Perth, until we got to Exmouth and north of Exmouth. So the first couple of months, everything was fine. It's just as soon as you hit the tropics, you've got the humidity and things just start to go bad.
I can even see a sheen of sweat developing on you. That's how humid it is right now.
Yeah, onions are great, so we've got a whole lot of onions here. And we use these, we use these in namas, and they're really good. So We got quite a few onions there. Got 3 or 4 kilos there of onions.
So the key word is versatility. Everything here can be combined to make a lot of different dishes.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a few little treats just to be thrown in, because it's not all just happy smiles.
Spartan.
You do need, sometimes you do need to lift your spirits, you know, so.
Yeah, like salted cashews, they're really yummy.
Oh, so good.
And cookies. But I mean, we haven't gone and bought cookies for every week. They're only going to last for a few days.
Yeah. But anyway, that's what provisioning for about 6 weeks.
I reckon this is 8 weeks of provisioning. Plus the legumes.
Yeah,
so.
plus what we've still got, and you know, all the expensive stuff, like we've still got all our spices, because we got a stack of those.
Yeah, we bulk ordered our spices. We got 100 grams of everything in March, and they're still going. So.
Yeah, yeah.
And the same with the Asian store, you get your rice in the big bags. So I just bought another 2 kilos to top us up, but we've still got 5 kilos of rice on board anyway. So.
And people do have to be careful when they are getting bulk stores for their boat. Insect control is vital, really, isn't it? Important. Because if you get weevils or cockroaches or stuff in your stores, or God forbid a rat on board, you can lose thousands of dollars.
Yeah, so we were lucky enough to be able, our angle was out of the yacht when we provisioned in March, so we were able to freeze all of our grains and legumes before we got on the boat, which is great.
Yeah, that was really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we were going to pack this away. The last remaining jobs is to wrap our veggies in newspaper and stow them.
Yeah.
And then it just comes down to...
And put everything in containers so we can minimise.
Containerise. Yep.
Yeah, I've got lots of empty containers down there. So.
Terrific, alright.
And then just push everything away. So you can actually fit quite a lot of food in a little tiny 30-footer. You've just got to be clever with what you do. Sweat sheen.
Now we were set to meet my old friends Emma and Leroy, who live in Weipa, so we thought we'd better clean up our act. About the proper way to coil a hose.
Go on, son. I reckon you'd win the hose coiling championships.
That sounds like there'd be massive prizes for that. The reason that you'd actually do that is it's actually like doing a lot of figure eights, but one's folded on, then you do another figure eight and it closes. And the reason being is when you pull this off and you go, it won't kick. That's called being a good citizen.
We've made it to Weipa and we're staying at a friend's house, and to thank them for their hospitality we're going to make them some bacon. So what we've done first is we went and got pork belly from the butcher. This is a deboned piece of pork belly, but the skin was still on, so we've just removed the skin. I got Troy to remove it earlier. Just going to take that off because you don't want the skin when you're curing, but you can use the skin to make delicious crackling later. The first thing to do is to measure out salt and sugar to put on top of your bacon. I calculate it according to weight, so I calculate 40 grams of salt and 40 grams of sugar per kilo. So this is a 1.5 kilo piece of pork belly, so I've got 120 grams here of salt and sugar solution combined in equal parts. So the first thing to do is to rub the salt and sugar solution all over the piece of... Now I'm going to take the container that it's going to cure in the fridge and I'll just flip it over and put salt and sugar solution on the other side. Salt and sugar mixture, I should say. It's not really a solution. On the other side. So that's done now. All you need to do is put the lid on, put it in the fridge and leave it for 3 to 5 days, depending on how salty or sweet you want your bacon. The skin that we removed off the pork belly, I put it in the oven for about 20 minutes at 250 degrees Celsius. And I just put salt. I got Troy to score it and we put salt and a little bit of oil on top of it. And it's actually turned out really good. The other piece is a little bit burnt because I probably left it in a little long, but this piece turned out perfectly. It's really light and all the fats come out and it's really crispy. So we're going to try it. Can't really do this on the boat because we don't have an oven, so this is a special treat for us.
Give it a chomp and show us. That's crackling, alright.
Crackling.
Now before the crossing we were gifted a spear, but it's the nature of these things that they're semi-disposable. They're actually quite fragile when you start throwing them around and catching things, so it was time to make another one. I started off just by taking off the knots. Now the traditional way to straighten a spear is to hold it over the fire, and once the timber's nice and hot, then you can apply force to it to bend it or straighten it how you wish. We're in the suburbs, so I used butane. As with anything you make from any type of wood, you have to get the skin off so it dries out nicely. Now my favourite survival knife is this parang, and you'll notice that it's not sharpened all along its blade, just up the sweet spot, and that enables me to have a variety of holds and use this thing in all different sorts of positions. Making your own spear means that you get to customise it. I have a preferred length of about 4 times my arm length. I'm also fairly traditional in my preference that I like my spears to have most of their weight in the first 2/3 closest to the tip. Alright, for the spear tips I'm going to use stainless steel. Normally you would use spring steel for the best spear tips, but I'm going to use stainless because we live on a boat and there's lots of salt water and I don't want yellow rust stains all over the yacht just from my fishing spear. Stainless it is. When sharpening stainless steel you don't want to destroy the temper or the nature of it, so very, very gently is the name of the game, and regular cooling. While I had the grinder out with a flopper disc, I just wanted to fair it up, just smooth out some of those knots that might catch my hand when I'm out hunting, and just smooth off the edges. The epoxy that I prefer is Boat Coat, an Australian system, and I think it's a really great product in these very handy bottles. Now here I've secured the spear upright, and because it's bamboo it's got a natural hollow that holds that epoxy, so I just embedded those in the epoxy and let it set. Once it had set, then a very tight binding of thin stainless wire. And twist the ends to finish. So there we go. There's a stainless reinforcing for that bit of bamboo. And now the last thing that I'm going to do to finish this is just mix up another bit of 2-part epoxy, and I'll just coat this, so that'll make that incredibly strong. It'll make this bamboo waterproof. And as this dries out, then this is going to get a coat as well. And on this end, I might actually wrap a little bit of fiberglass around there because that needs to be strong, because eventually we'll put a spear thrower in that. But when I tend to use the spear, I'm hanging off that end anyway and really drive it. So that end needs to be quite stiff.
It was time to get the brew on, and before I poured the water into the fermenter, I made sure I gave everything a good clean with sanitizer. The advantage of the Cooper kits that we're using, and why we were quite excited to try them, is that they don't require any boiling. You simply add the wort to sterile clean water and mix in the wort. You also have to add a brew enhancer, but that can be any type of malt extract, dry or otherwise, but we just used the recommended Cooper's one because we didn't want to stray too far away from the instructions. And I'm just checking the temperature here. We wanted to add the yeast when the water temperature was around 28 to 30 degrees. This is the hydrometer that I used to measure the original specific gravity of the wort before we added the yeast. I also hydrated the yeast before mixing the wort together, which I added to the fermenter full of wort. Here's the airlock and a spoon sitting in more sanitizer solution. And the airlock itself is of course filled with sanitizer solution as well to prevent oxygen entering into the brew. I put the fermenter in the coolest part of the house. The beer became very active, but we may have put a little bit too much beer into the fermenter.
After a few years of use, our oars were looking a little bit rough, so we'd sanded them back and we needed to do a bit of maintenance. Again, we were using boat coat epoxy, which is a 2-to-1 mix, and I like to do it using weights rather than volumes. I just find it more accurate. I also took the opportunity to reinforce the end of the spear with a bit of fiberglass. Now, one of the problems that has developed in the heat and humidity is the oars had started to split. So I want to mix up a little bit of epoxy glue and join them back together. Normally I have a proprietary brand extender that I put with the epoxy, but we didn't have it, so talcum powder served the purpose just right. And I got it just short of being the consistency of peanut butter to make this glue. A bamboo sliver served to keep the split open, so I was able to really push some glue in between that crack. Boat coat was specifically designed for wooden boat building, and I have found that it is incredibly strong. I think it's a really great product.
Once the glue job was done, it was time for a protective coat of epoxy.
Maintenance is pretty important, but there are some that find it a little bit boring.
So the bacon's been in the fridge now for 3 days, and I'm just going to pull it out and elevate it on these 2 racks just for 12 hours before we smoke it. 2 racks in. We're not on the boat, so we're improvising with a smoker. We're going to use this exploding stove and a tray with some wood chips on it. And then we're going to sit the pork belly on top of the tray and then wrap our foil around it, and we're going to create a smoke chamber for the pork belly.
I can hear the comments now. Why are you using an exploding stove? It's just a term of art, isn't it? They don't really explode if you do it right. Anyway, let's do it.
We're going to raise the food above the smouldering wood chips with this strainer.
Nice.
Yeah, so just put it like that. button it down. And we'll put this on just for extra stability. And also these points here, we'll just push the fork into that so it'll get held nice.
Just a happy accident, isn't it?
Yeah. Putting it in. And now we're just going to cover it. Yeah, the smoke can swirl around the food. We've got a hole here.
That's alright, you have holes in
The magma.
yeah, just a little bit and we'll know that smoke's working then.
So we've got the fire burning on the camp stove. That should make the wood chips, the dry wood chips, smoke, and then the smoke should swirl around inside the foil bag there and make our pork belly nice and smoky. Really nice. So we just got a really low bit of flame. Okay, it's smoking in there. We're just covering it with some more foil.
What happened, that little bag that you made is quite acting like a nice frame up around the pig.
Yeah.
So this bit will just contain it.
Seal it in. So we've left it in for about 30 to 40 minutes and it smells great. This is the top side, it's not really as smoky. The underside here, it's got some nice yellow smoky flavour there. Look at the fat, it's gone all yellow from the smoke. And we don't have any black on there, which is great, which means there's no sap or resin that was in the wood.
Yep, no tar was on there.
No tar, that's right. So I'm just going to put it on here. The chips burn.
That is still smoking a bit, isn't it? Look at that. Let's have a look under it.
Oh yeah, they burn.
Yep, pretty good.
Okay, some people have a little bit of trouble with what knots to use when you're tying a load down to a car or, for that matter, onto a boat. And we like to use a truckies hitch or a double purchase knot. There's a couple of ways you can attack it and I'll show you both. So the traditional way is your rope comes up over the load and then round a bar or some strong point, and then you bring the rope back up and you make a doorway that you're looking through. You reach your hand through that doorway and you grab the rope that's coming from the load and you pull it, and you can drop that now. And you get yourself a nice bite of rope. And the traditional way to do it is to make one loop, pull it through, and another loop, like that. And now what you've made is a bit of a pulley, and you're actually, when you're going like that, you're actually 1, 2, 3, you got 3 to 1. So if you can put 40 kilos there, you're actually putting 120 kilos worth of pull. So you can pull it down like that. And the nice thing about those knots is to hold any of the tension that you've gained, you can just pinch that there and hold it really easily. Then throw a bite in behind it and it holds it. And you can put as many of those in as you like. Now these things, like these two loops, are supposed to hold that quite well. But on a boat, on fishing boats particularly that I've been in, on rough weather, the flicking and everything, that can sometimes capsize. It feels pretty firm. So another way that we like to do it, a lot of people will know this, but they might not have seen this second method that I'm going to show you, is the same thing. So make your doorway of rope, reach through it, grab that, drop it. You make your first loop, but instead of making a second loop, you pretend that you're tying a bowline. So again, the rabbit comes up through the hole, round the back, and down. Now when you pull on it, that cannot escape. This is really resistant to failure, that knot. It's exactly the same. You pinch, tie it off, and you've still got it. But this is really secure. And again, just like a bowline, doesn't matter how much tension, how many hundreds of kilos you've put on that, you can always, like a bowline, just break its back, like this, and undo it. So you might already know how to tie a truckies hitch. I've seen a lot of people have problems with it, but yeah, that's something you can use, I guess. So just finally, make the door, reach through the door, grab the rope, pull it up, make a loop, up just like a bowline. Rabbit comes up through the hole, around the back of the tree, and back in. Truckies hitch. There you go. Just another thing of interest, if you want, and I've used this to pull four-wheel drives out of swamps, but you can put a series of truckies hitches in a line and keep boosting that mechanical advantage to the point where you can break one of these 1-ton ropes. So the bit that comes pulling down, I'll show you. You do another hitch right here, and I'll just do a quick one like that. So now this is a double purchase knot on that, which is a double purchase knot. So you keep escalating the mechanical advantage.
Oh, don't break the little dinghy.
Yeah. So I was driving around in an old Land Rover once and I got it stuck in the mud, and by putting 4 of these in series, I was able to actually slowly get it out and get back on the road. Which was a hassle then, but I felt pretty good about it when it worked. As you do. There you go.
So that wraps up our time in Weipa, and I just want to thank our friends Emma and Leroy. Very generous hospitality, and it really helped us out.
If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button because it makes it more likely that YouTube will suggest our video to a broader audience. Also, we'd love to hear your feedback, so head over to the comments and drop us a line.